let go and surrender, we know that all is well. Take a moment now and get comfortable in your chair. Just taking in a deep breath and release and let go. And as you settle in to a time of quiet, just allowing the light of Spirit to drape over you. Just feeling this warm light energy as it cradles you from your head down to your shoulders, into your arms, into your hands. Feel it as it covers your torso and your hips, your thighs, and your knees, down into your feet and your toes. What if God looked like us? We always say God within. Divine light shines from within us. We are the Christ being. But what does that look like? I invite you right now to imagine a Christ-like being sitting beside you. Perhaps it's Jesus the Christ. Perhaps it's Buddha. Maybe it's Martin Luther King or Maya Angelou or Oprah. Someone that you deeply admire and respect and hold as a person that shines and expresses the Christ light. See them reaching over and picking up your hand in theirs. Feel their warm, loving energy. Then imagine that your skin has a zipper on the side. And you unzip that zipper and see this Christ-like being entering into your skin, filling up your toes, your feet, your legs, your stomach, your back, your shoulders, your arms, your head. Feel their presence radiating within you. within you as it begins to connect to all of your cells, and as it becomes one with you. Just experience this in the silence. And as we become aware of this oneness, you may choose to zip up the zipper, keeping this one presence within you. So that when we look to the Christ within, we know it's already there, and we are one. And so it is.
Good morning. So for those of you who don't know me, my name is Reverend Charles Perry, and I'm the senior minister here at Unity of Birmingham. And I want to welcome you if this is your first time or your first time in a long time, or if you're here every Sunday, just like the paint on the walls. We are glad you are here today. It is a beautiful day, is it not? It sure is. I don't know why, I just woke up feeling wonderful today. And it's good. Life is good. Amen. Good day to wake up. So before I talk about what I actually want to talk about today, I want to share a little bit with you about what we do here and why we do some of the things that we do. You know, as part of the way that we have been working on crafting our services, I have gotten away from like making announcements so much. You know, we have our Unity News, which we really love, and you know, they do a wonderful job with that. But sometimes I think that maybe you need to hear it from me, or at least hear why we're doing some of the things that we're doing, so you'll know they're important. It's not just something to kill time with. You know, it's not just something to do because we couldn't think of anything else to do on Wednesday night or Sunday afternoon or Saturday night or whenever it is. We do the things that we do. Everything we do in this church, when we take a look at it, what we want to do is put it up against our mission and say, is this helping accomplish our mission? And for those of you who remember our mission, you know, it is we demonstrate divine love through spiritual practice, joyful community, and inspired outreach. Right? So those things that we do have something to do with fulfilling our mission. Or, you know, hopefully we don't do them. We decide, you know what, that's not ours to do. So we have some really great things that are going to be coming up here in the near future that we're not doing just because it sounds like something a church ought to do. We're doing them because they're part of our mission. The first piece of that, our spiritual development, our spiritual unfoldment, our spiritual practice, right? Spiritual practice is not something that we think about. It's not something that, you know, we sort of know about in the back of our mind but never really get around to. Practice implies exactly what we're doing. We're practicing it. in the 4 T's, and we talk about the 4 T's a lot. That's tithing of your time, your talent, and your treasure. That tithing of our time, a lot of people mistake that with being a volunteer, and that's not it. Tithing of our time is that time that we spend engaging in spiritual practice. And I will tell you that this hour of the week, right, sitting in church, it's a great start. I'm glad you're here. And it is not nearly enough. Okay? So, doing the math, if I was going to tithe of my time back to God to say, I'm going to spend this time in spiritual practice, right, of our waking hours in the day, that's about, 1.6 hours per day would be a tenth of that. That would be a tithe, right? Which means you have about 11.2 hours per week to spend on spiritual practice. How many of us are spending 11.2 hours per week on spiritual practice? Right? One couple, 3 hands, 4 maybe, kind of, right? So there's a lot of open space for opportunity for spiritual practice, yes? A lot of us could spend a little more time in spiritual practice. Now, what does that look like? All right, that can be prayer, it can be meditation. For some of us, it's yoga. For some of us, it might be any number of other practices that actually feed our spirit. All right, so a couple of the things that we have coming up in Unity of Birmingham are things that you can choose from to plug into that 11.2 hours or whatever piece of it you have left that you need to take advantage of. Every second Wednesday of the month, and the second Wednesday is coming up this Wednesday, this year we are studying Living Originally by Reverend Robert Brummett. And if you have not yet joined us, we have a ball every second Wednesday night. We get together, we eat food, and we study another practice. And the idea is that we study these spiritual practices one a month and practice them, and then just kind of keep putting more spiritual tools into our toolkit as the year goes on. If you have not yet joined us, Living Originally is still available in the bookstore. It's also available on Kindle as a download. And you need to read through chapter 3 to be caught up for this Wednesday. Okay, so there's one opportunity. Another opportunity is going to start next week, and I cannot tell you how excited I am about this. If you have been feeling challenged in your prosperity life in some way or another, whether that's financial prosperity or relationship prosperity, spiritual prosperity, physical prosperity, any of those areas of abundance in our life, we're going to start a series next Sunday called Prosperity for You, right? Prosperity for You. And we actually have the author is going to come and speak next Sunday and teach the first class next Sunday afternoon. She is Reverend Cynthia Alice Anderson. She's my former senior minister from Christ Church Unity in Orlando, Florida. And it's funny, I don't normally ask people to stand if this is their first time here, but I have one of my brothers from Christ Church Unity in Orlando, Florida, here with us today. Brendan, would you please stand so we can honor you? Yeah. I was just remembering earlier today, Brendan and I spoke together on a Thanksgiving service, kind of like the ones that we've done here a couple times, where I ask about 4 people to share their gratitude stories. 10 years ago, I think it was 2006, wasn't it? Yeah, Reverend Gene asked 4 of us, and it was the first time I ever delivered any part of a message in a Unity church. And Brendan and I were 2 of those 4 people that he asked to share our gratitude stories. So anyway, just to kind of get sidetracked there. But Reverend Alice is going to be teaching the first class next Sunday afternoon. That's going to be for 4 weeks. And we're going to have books available next Sunday when she gets here with them. Or do we have those already? We don't have them already. I think she's bringing them. But it's an excellent prosperity course that she has created using a lot of principles from a bunch of different teachers and simply stuff that she has learned on her own. Alice leads the fastest growing church in the Unity movement. She is doing tremendous work, and you really owe it to yourself to come hear her speak next Sunday morning. And if you're feeling a call to kind of up your prosperity in one way or another, come join us, the next 4 Sunday afternoons. Not this Sunday, but a week from today For 4 Sundays, we're going to be studying prosperity for you. So that's another great opportunity to get out there and do a little bit more of that spiritual practice that we can all use some of. Another nice thing about being in those courses is that you're part of our community. And being in joyful community has to be more than the 30 seconds we give you to hug the person next to you in between the 2 congregational songs. That doesn't create community. You know, I've heard people say that have been going to this church for 20 years, well, I never met him or her, and the other person they're talking about is also somebody, you know, who was here for 20 years, but, you know, one of them was sitting where you're sitting, and one of them was sitting where you guys are sitting, and they just never met. So we're doing our best to fix that. One of those ways is by being in community and learning things together in our classes, and the other way is through our small groups. We have another semester of small groups kicking off this week, and there are sign-up sheets out in the lobby for several of those groups. And I can tell you, as someone who has participated in those groups, that I now know people in this church that I never really knew before, other than just to see their face on Sunday. And I know them at a very deep and personal level. I consider them my friends. And they have helped me in my spiritual walk, and I sure hope I've helped them. And that's what being in joyful community to me is all about. The fact that we are able to get to know each other well enough to unburden our souls, to, you know, say what's up with us, to get real, to get honest, to be who we really are with each other. And plus there may be some, you know, there may be a little learning depending on the group. And that's the nice thing about this, is not all these groups are like classes. Now, I'm going to be doing a group, and we're going to be talking about metaphysical Bible interpretation, which means that we're going to take Bible verses and sort of interpret them the Unity way, which is probably a lot different than anything you may have experienced. There are a few slots left in my group if you want to sign up for that. Reverend Terry is going to be teaching one called Heart-Centered Metaphysics. And the difference there is, A, it's a book that is going to be, they're going to be studying, but it's about the kind of questions that sometimes people who are new to Unity ask, like, well, what do we think about who Jesus was? And what do we think about what God is? And what about heaven and hell? And what's the Trinity? Does that mean anything to us? Right? But then there are other groups that are real simple, like, you know, the walking shoes and water bottles. Hey, we're going to go out together and we're going to, you know, walk around, get some exercise. We're going to be in community together. We're going to talk together. You know, and as time goes by, I know we're going to have some other groups. I think this summer we've already got a group plan that's going to go out and go to some different restaurants and, you know, just have kind of like a taste of Birmingham and get together and break bread together and share who we are with one another. So I encourage you, if you have not yet become involved in those, think about becoming involved, and maybe even more importantly, think about stepping into leadership. Because without people who are willing to at least say, hey, I can lead a group that goes and has breakfast on Friday over at the Pancake House, I can do that. You don't have to be a theological genius to do that, right? I think the idea, right? I think that sometimes it scares people. You know, saying, okay, yeah, I'll step up and I'll lead, because they think there's this like huge hidden bunch of stuff that you got to do or learn or whatever, and all this homework. It doesn't take a whole lot of homework to go, you know, check out the menu at the Pancake House. Pretty simple stuff, right? We can all do that. And we're not asking people to take extra time out of their schedule necessarily. Now, obviously, you might not be, you know, metaphysically studying the Bible right now on your own, but you're probably eating breakfast. Probably. You know? So maybe one day a week you get together and eat breakfast with some friends. And in the process, you become part of a joyful community. You know? And that's what we're about. That's our mission as a church. One of the other things that we're going to do to be in joyful community is we're going to do a fundraiser that honors the Divine Feminine. It's coming up in May the 7th. If you haven't already put it on your calendar, put it on your calendar, Saturday, May 7th, honoring the Divine Feminine. I believe we're going to be selling tickets out in the lobby afterwards. Yes, indeed we are. And you can also purchase tickets online. And we're going to be honoring someone who was the first lady of this church for a very long time, Jane Bartholomew. And by honoring her, what I mean is we're going to show people kind of what she did through the years. Barry Hester, our tech director, is putting together a slideshow to kind of show Jane's accomplishments and just all the love that she poured into this church through all those years. I think we need to honor that and recognize that. That's another thing that we do. Finally, there's the inspired outreach, and we are just beginning to scratch the surface of that. I know the walking shoes and water bottles ladies went out and you did the Rump Shaker 5K in Birmingham, and probably wearing your purple t-shirts, right? Let people know that we're out there participating in that. We've got other folks that have been doing other things. Our prayer shawl small group has been reaching out to people who've had something happen in their lives and giving them a prayer shawl that they made with their own 2 hands and that I personally blessed. But we have a lot yet that we can do out in that world. And I will tell you one thing that has presented itself to me is, as a part of my reaching out into the community, I'm involved in a couple of different interfaith groups. One of them is the Southside Ministers Group. And we get together and have lunch and get a presentation from someone and just try to, reach out to each other across denominations. So this last lunch that we had a presentation from a guy who is part of Faith in Action Alabama. And that is an organization that is reaching out to faith communities all across the state and creating a grassroots interdenominational group that will stand up for things that are morally and ethically important. So one of the things that he talked about focusing on, at least as this first round of things goes on, is over-incarceration in the state of Alabama, particularly among our African American community. What they want to do is they want to get members of the clergy and then 5 to 10 member teams from their congregation throughout the state and begin working that issue. If you are interested in becoming part of that, what I'd like for you to do is, in your bulletin, there is a Get Connected form, and this is normally for our new members or people that haven't been here for a long time so that we can get their contact information. If you are interested in being part of that initiative with me, Faith in Action Alabama, I would like for you to just put your name, and if you're already in our realm system, you don't need to put your contact information, but just write Faith in Action on it. And if you don't know what realm is, go ahead and give me your contact information, just in case. All right? We need to reach out beyond these walls. And it's not just because it's a good thing to do or because people might hear about unity and come and be part of our community. It's because it's our mission. That's what we said we were going to do. We all got together. We decided, what is this community going to be about? What is this church going to be about? What standard are we going to hold ourselves to? What's right going to look like for us? And what we said was we were going to do inspired outreach. So if we're not in integrity. And it's time for us to get there. Now, if that particular mission doesn't seem to appeal to you, there are a lot of great things that we can do to be engaged in this community. There are a lot of great causes that we can support. And if you want to be a part of that, if you want to take a piece of that, if you want to lead something like that, call me, write me, come by and visit me, and let's talk about it and see how we can get out there and be a part of this community in a way that we have not yet successfully done. Amen? All right. So, what I really wanted to talk to you about today is something that will help feed that first part, that spiritual practice. It's interesting. There are times when I'm standing back there at the end of the service and people come through and they shake my hands and they say, "Thank you for saying so and such. I really needed to hear that today." And after they leave, I get this kind of quizzical look on my face, or at least in my mind, thinking, that didn't come out of my mouth. I didn't say that. But something I said must have triggered that in them, and that was what they needed. You know, maybe I just reminded them of something. So a couple of months ago, one of the members of the congregation came up to me and thanked me for reminding them of something that's called the golden key. Yeah. And I was like, hey, no problem. You know, and they said, well, I'm going to go get another copy of it and read it again because, you know, it's really good stuff. And after they left, I thought to myself, did I say the golden key? I don't think I said that. But I think what I had done was I had mentioned the principle, which is really what it's all about. So some time went by, and that person came back to me and said, I've gotten so much out of this, I want every member of the congregation to have one of these. It's a very simple little pamphlet. It was written by Emmett Fox, if you're familiar with Emmett. Emmett was not a Unity minister or a New Thought necessarily author, but he really was kind of one of us. And the golden key is essentially what positive or affirmative prayer is all about. He calls it scientific prayer, as did many of the New Thought folks back in the day, including the Fillmores, who founded Unity. So at this time, what I would like our ushers to do is to bring up the copies of the golden key that we have for you so I can bless them, and we're going to give them to you. So everybody's going to get a golden key. Yeah. So come on down. Dun, 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 dun. All right. Sweet Spirit, we give thanks for this gift, and we bless these manuals to the use of Spirit as lived through each and every person here. We're grateful for the benefactor who chose to be of service in this way. We're grateful for Emmett Fox for putting into such simple words this golden key. And we are grateful for all of the good, all of the demonstrations that we will be able to manifest in our lives if we simply do what it says, if we are willing to grasp a hold of this key and turn it. So for this blessing and for all the blessings that follow it, we say thank you. Thank you, God. So it is. So while they're passing those out, I want to say a couple of other thank yous. I want to thank our band for doing the great job that they're doing this morning, as always. And I also want to thank Brenda Durham, who is our licensed Unity teacher candidate, for doing the meditation this morning. When I got up today, I saw her face in my mind, and I said, Brenda needs to do the meditation today if she's there. I'm just going to surprise her. So I did. Have you ever wondered life is full of surprises. Have you ever wondered what a licensed Unity teacher is? The licensed Unity teacher is another level of certification within Unity. Licensed Unity teachers are allowed to basically do pretty much everything ministers are allowed to do. They can lead congregations, and they can teach classes. They can marry, bury, consecrate, and sanctify, but they're not ordained ministers. So what she's doing requires a great deal of devotion and dedication and a lot of learning, but it's really fulfilling, and as you might guess, in order to become a teacher, you have to learn a lot. So if you're interested in pursuing spiritual education as part of your spiritual practice, Brenda could tell you what that path is like. And it's not something that you have to go away to Unity Village and do, kind of like I had to go away for a few years to Hogwarts and be processed and turned into a minister. So thank you, ushers, for that service. And I hope you all will enjoy your golden keys. Now, many of you are probably wondering, and I see some of you already like this, like, what is in this? What's the good stuff? What's the golden key? All right? So on page 10, the golden key is the only thing that's in boldface. This is it. This is the whole thing. Okay? So if you wonder, how am I going to find time to do all these things Reverend Charles is talking about doing? Or what, I've got so much stuff going on in my life. I have so many problems I have to deal with. Here's the deal. Stop thinking about the difficulty, whatever it is, and think about God instead. That's it. Stop thinking about the difficulty, whatever it is. Think about God instead. Like Reverend Charles, it cannot be that simple. That's way too easy. Sorry, you're going to have to do better than that. But the truth is, it is that simple. The deal is that it requires you to actually do it. And that's where most of us kind of fall off the wagon, right? We know all this stuff, but actually doing it, the actual spiritual practice of it, becomes kind of tough. We tend to go back into our groove, right? We may redecorate the groove we're in a little bit, right? Ooh, there's a nice golden key. I'll hang that on the wall there. Ooh, there's Unity's 5 principles. I'll put that there. And I'll just keep going right straight through my groove like I do every day, like I have every day, like I will every day, unless I change by actually doing something, right? So how does this work? You say that's just crazy talk. I can't just think about God and fix everything in my life. Right? You think, because to our ego mind it doesn't make sense. But if you'll look, on page 9, the beginning of the third paragraph down, that first phrase, 3 words, God is omnipotent. That's Unity's first principle, essentially. We talk about the one power and the one presence of God. Okay, it's not like God, and this is where Unity kind of veers off from traditional Christianity. We're not dualistic. We don't believe that there's this giant war going on out there between God and Satan. Okay? There are not 2 powers in the universe, there's one. If we say God is omnipotent, right? That means that, it's a laydown. Nobody else stands a chance, including Satan, if there is such a thing, right? In Unity, we metaphysically interpret Satan as the sense consciousness or the ego consciousness. And if you want to learn more about that, join Reverend Terry's small group doing heart-centered metaphysics, because they'll dig into it, I bet you. All right? But God's 1 and 0. Right? That's what omnipotent means. I win. Right? I got this. One of the most powerful affirmations when, it's hitting the fan in your life is just to kind of breathe for a second and say, God's got it. Whatever it is, God's got it. Right? I realize that takes a lot of trust. But we develop trust by doing some very specific things. Tithing is one of those things. When I tithe, it helps me to establish trust in the fact that God is my source and that I cannot outgive God no matter what happens. I keep trying. It doesn't work. Right? I'm even giving more than 10% now. Still can't outgive God. It's amazing. Right? We develop that trust in that one presence and that one power, understanding that this whole ball of wax is God, right? God's not just some dude up in the sky somewhere who might smile on me from time to time if I'm a good boy. God is all that there is. And I'm a part of that. And when I get into alignment with that, things work in ways that I simply cannot explain because it's bigger than I am. All right? Now, the phrase that comes right after God is omnipotent on page 9. says, and man is his image and likeness and has dominion over all things. The second principle of unity is that same divine spark that God is, because God is in all things, God is everywhere, right, is in us. We are made in God's image and likeness. Not like you could paint a picture of God and he would look like me or you or you or you, right? Again, not the white bearded dude, with the white robes, the big gold G on the throne. Not that guy. But in the image and likeness of our spirit, that shining entity, that Christ that Brenda was talking about in the meditation. That's like a splinter, a fragment, a grain of sand on the beach of God, and it's in each and every one of us. Because of that, we too can do the things that God does. We can create a reality. God is reality, and God is creating the reality, and we are all helping at some level. I mean, I create my reality, both by the action of my mind, my thoughts, my feelings, and the things I do, and my perception of it. And Ashley creates her reality, by looking out on the world and perceiving it in the way she does, thinking about it the way she does. Jim creates his reality. Shannon creates her reality. Everyone here, we are all part of creating our own reality, and as parts of God, we are all part of creating all the reality that is. Amen? All right. So when he talks about taking our mind off our troubles, what's that going to help us do? Not create trouble. Right? And this may seem to fly in the face of physics, but it doesn't if you have studied quantum physics at all. Newtonian physics may be a little bit different. But quantum physics has verified the observer effect. When I observe something one way, guess what? It becomes that. When I observe it a different way, it becomes different. Whether it's a wave or a particle or wave. Whatever I choose to see is there. What I choose not to see is not. It's funny, talking about putting my mind on God, completely out of the blue, and those of you who read my notes this week know this. I was at a meeting of my other spiritual family, and we were talking about the 11th step, seeking through prayer and meditation to discover God's will for us and to have the power to carry that out. And for a long time, as I said, I've had problems with that because God's will is again, white guy with the big beard and the robe and the big G saying, this is what you need to do, Charles. But that's not really it. What I need to do is get more into understanding it through the golden key. I simply put my mind on God and watch what happens. I align myself with those attributes that I describe to God. God is all wisdom. God is all love. God is all compassion. God is all understanding. And when I infuse my reality with those divine ideas, I not only experience life in a different way, I create a different life. All right? We've talked about the third principle of unity, which is thoughts held in mind with feeling produce after their own kind. And that's exactly what the golden key is. Except it also incorporates the fourth principle, which is essentially the way that we supercharge the third principle is we align our minds with God through prayer and meditation. Prayer and meditation raises our consciousness to a higher level. So if our consciousness is raised to a higher level, if we stop thinking about our troubles and we start thinking about God, we create more good, more God, not only in our minds, but in the world around us. I mean, we can't help but do that. Now, is this going to change everything in your life to be exactly the way you want it? Probably not. Probably not going to satisfy your ego. Who's your ego? Satan. metaphysically. Right? You may not get everything you want the way you want it, no matter how much you golden key something. But you know what? The more you golden key things, the more what you want changes. Right? And even in those things that feel like the end of your world, you'll find something that feels more like the beginning of something brand new. And finally, as he points out, Unity's fifth principle also kicks in. Because simply knowing this thing is not enough. The knowledge of truth principles is insufficient. We must live the truth we know. Whatever's going on with you, whatever's up, whatever area of your life seems to be not working for you right now, I invite you to do this thing. I invite you to try this. Anytime the thought of that enters your mind, say, I'm going to golden key this, and then affirm, as he suggests, something about the presence of God. And he's got some examples in there, some as simple as, God is with me, or God loves me, which is something that I think too few of us tell ourselves on a regular basis, because we've been taught something very different. But whatever feels authentic to you in terms of telling yourself about the presence of God, I invite you to do that instead of thinking about this thing, this whatever it is, that's eating your lunch. You know? And I think you will find, maybe sooner, maybe later, that if the thing itself has not changed, at least your reality around it will have. And that's a big piece of the power of the golden key. Please join me in prayer. Sweet Spirit, we give thanks this day for your presence in our consciousness as our world, as one another, and for all of the blessings that we continue to experience when we let go of the things of ego, when we let go of our attachments, when we let go of those troubles, as Emmett puts it, and we open our minds and our hearts, our consciousness to you, to your presence, your love, and your light. For all that you are and all that you do through us, and as every beautiful shining face that we see, we say thank you. Thank you, God. So it is.